Get started now. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's very special book launch celebration. I am Tamara Rockwood with Bainbridge Island Press. I am thrilled that you have joined us for what promises to be an extraordinary evening. My husband Ben and I run Bainbridge Island Press. We are passionate about bringing great poetry to great readers. We publish poetry collections such as Nicole's poetry collection tonight. We publish express digital chapbooks. We have a Poetics anthology. It's international. And we also host the Poetics podcast, which is also available everywhere, where Nicole's work has already been featured and captivated by our listeners. So tonight, we are celebrating the launch of A Woman in Pieces by Nicole Cannon. It is a poetry collection that is a modern masterpiece in women's literature. This book takes us on a journey through the 7 archetypal stages of womanhood, from child to crone. It's unlike anything that we have read before. So I am honored to introduce our interviewer for tonight, Michelle Burak, who will be guiding us through this intimate conversation with our poet of the evening, Nicole Cannon. And tonight, we're going to let Michelle and Nicole take it away for what I know is going to be a deeply moving exploration of this remarkable work. So, Michelle, the stage is yours.
Nicole's voice, reading some of the works and kind of talking about the process behind how it came to be. I was hoping we could start with just having you read the very first poem in the collection, Carnival.
Yes.
For me, it evokes just that sense of exuberance and curiosity and discovery, and I thought it would be a great place to start.
Sure, thank you. So this is starts off the book in the child section. Carnival. I was in bumper cars apologizing until I looked above the electrified cage and saw each car had its own blob of clay-like matter directing it where to go, and I realized this is what we're meant to do down here, bump into each other.
We bump into each other a lot.
Yeah. And I think for a really long time, I was beating myself up over that because I was worried about hurting people or getting hurt. So I was not sure how to navigate that whole, how do I be, how do I interact? How do I bump into somebody else without not shifting their karma or affecting them in a way that might change their trajectory and send them hurling out into space. So that was kind of where that came out of.
Yeah. So the book is organized around the feminine archetypes, and I was hoping you would talk about the process of just putting the book together. And then as we were talking about the interview, you also drew my attention to the fact that each archetype in the book is also associated with a chakra. So just talk about the process of how you decided to organize this and where the material came from.
Great. So this is 10 years of writing, and I was finally encouraged to put it all together in one collection, and structure eludes me, which is probably why I'm drawn to poetry, because I like how there's an ambiguity in poetry. So there's an exercise that my teacher does, Jack Grapes, and instead of just using the 12 archetypes, the Jungian archetypes, he uses the female archetypes. And in that exercise, you embody the energy of the different female archetypes and you write from that place. Well, I kind of reverse engineered that because I wasn't quite sure how to create a structure around all of these poems I had written. And so I was like, well, let me just use the archetypes as a scaffolding. And I sorted them out. I was like, well, this is very child innocent. And this one is very mother wisdom. And the Huntress poems were all of my seeking poems. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to use this as a loose structure of how these poems fit together. And then I realized in doing that, that it created a narrative. And I didn't know that within my work, because the work is just so scattered and talking about this and that at different times in my life, that I didn't know that if I put all of the ones that came from the place of innocence in the beginning, and I moved through the different stages of my own personal evolution into crone, that there would be sort of a narrative arc that followed through. And then when I was in India, speaking of the chakras, I realized that the short poems that I have at the beginning of each chapter, I had originally written those as chakra poems. And I realized how they lined up perfectly for each of the chapters. Like child is the Muladhara chakra, which is very much the base chakra and about survival. And so we had the line drawings just as a little hint and suggestion of that energy that is informing those chapters. And I especially liked when we got to the upper chakras that solar plexus was mother and siren was heart, like the lover was heart. And then Medusa was throat chakra, which for me is just so important given how much our voice is quieted, especially in those more traumatic events or darker poems or dark feminine poetry, which I think is very much a part that needs to be expressed and integrated in all of our feminine energy and humanity.
So the poems were not written in the sequence that they appear in the book, but they just kind of coalesced into the different sections. One of the things I love about many of the poems is that there's these little detailed autobiographical moments or just like really rich lived experiences. And I was hoping you could read Egg Separator as one that just put me in a place and time really effectively.
Of course. Yay. Okay, here we go. I have to find it first. I did mark the pages. Oh, here it is. Okay. What section is this one in? Is this in Lover? What is this one in? Oh, no, it's in Virgin. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Egg Separator. I was last minute shopping the Christmas after my divorce, listening to the young couple in the checkout line talking about eggs. I could tell it was a new relationship. He was carrying their basket of presents, hair slicked, shirt tucked, pants belted, nervous and earnest, talking about eggs. She was all dressed up in eyelash extensions, lip gloss, heels, insecure and attentive, listening to him, talking about eggs. I want to get an egg separator, he stammered, because, well, I'm being smart and I'm eating egg whites now. In a flash, I see his life of egg white omelets in the sweaty gym where he battles cholesterol to woo her with his lean muscle mass. Oh, she says, hinting she knows her way around the kitchen. You can use the shells to do that too. I see their future with kids and bills, the last minute purchases, and no more talks about eggs. She'll just take the unnecessary items out of their basket, put them back without a word. But in this moment, he's sincere and she is devout. And I think maybe this is what love is about. Just hanging out, talking about eggs.
When you're in a place, in a moment like that, do you have a sense that it's going to be a poem, or is it something that gels later, or like how does...
I think that has happened with that one, not particularly. I think it was a moment that just stuck with me as being significant in an awareness that I had, so that when it came time to write, I was like, well, let me talk about this thing and let me see if I can grab the essence of my discovery in that moment. But there are other times where an event will happen and I'm like, oh, this is a poem, and I hope I can kind of capture it and encapsulate it, and not only speak to the emotions of the poem, but also the energy of it, especially in some of the more esoteric poems. You know, when I was in India, I had this like very profound experience being in a temple, and it was so transcendent. I was like, how do I bring all of this down into like a 3D consciousness? And luckily, you know, the ADHD pattern recognition. When I sit down to write, my subconscious just throws, oh, and it's like that. No, it's like that. So I can add a bunch of other examples or concepts to try to flesh out the feeling state.
Was there one that you wanted to read that was kind of that more esoteric flavor, or did you want to save that?
I think we had talked about, oh, well, you know, like what's like my favorite poem, like Earthly Cravings. That's one of my favorite poems I wrote. And that came from, you know, during COVID, Celeste, who is a biology major, had to watch a documentary about the dying coral reefs. And she's an avid scuba diver. And she also got me into scuba diving. And the coral reefs are just absolutely beautiful. And it was devastating watching this documentary about how they're dying and they're being, algae is growing over them. And then I had this moment of going like, okay, wait a second. Like in 100 years, when all the coral is dead, maybe people will be like awing at the beauty of algae, and like, who am I to decide what's beautiful? So I'm going to read that one. But that's kind of an idea of what I'm talking about, where a poem will just work on me and I'm like, how do I bring this into form? So this is Earthly Cravings. I'm done contemplating the meaning of life. All of my seeking has been to reach a boundless state of intense stillness while coral reefs die. Rising temperatures in the sea bleach white varietal gardens of colorful beings and cover them in algae. Men in power deny, so why spend time trying to determine what purpose existence serves? Who am I to ascribe value or meaning when God doesn't differentiate? Doesn't he love all of his creation equally? Life is life, whether coral or algae. Algae can be seen as beautiful too. Sagan said we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. God reaches out to touch the hand of man. I can't help think God is a narcissist. A blue whale's heart slows 2 beats per minute when it dives deep into the sea. The red light of Betelgeuse ebbs and flows, yet Orion still wields his mighty club. The earth pulsates every 26 seconds. She is alive, therefore I am. When I am permitted to leave the flesh, will I long for life, like my earthly craving to be one with everything?
That one in particular is in conversation with Andrea Gibson's poetry, and we just lost her, and I keep imagining her being in the everything and, you know, all of the gifts of her words. And so like I feel like you both speak so beautifully to that tension between craving all of the things that you can access when you're not trapped in 3D flesh, while also trying to relish what it is that we get to have when we're here as meat, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah, I have a lot to say about that, but I know we're short on time, so maybe that's a different conversation.
Well, so I do want to push this into the like challenging area a little bit. Just, you know, there's a lot of heavy stuff in the book of relational conflict with your ex-husband, sexual abuse in childhood, parental abandonment. There's a poem that talks about your developing awareness of racism, and there's a lot of courage to put some of that stuff out into the public eye. And I just would love to hear you talk a little bit about kind of, yeah, your decision process about what to share.
Yeah. So as I was talking about the ambiguity of poetry, I think when I was first starting out, I liked that because I could kind of hide more. And then as my voice developed, or I felt more confident in my voice, I found that there was more truth in my vulnerability. And I think I got less afraid to speak that truth and share that truth. For me, I think that, you know, art is very personal and intimate, at least the art that I respond to. So in choosing to share certain things that, you know, the confessional poems, as I like to call them, that I read sometimes and I just cringe, but at the same time, I don't know that there's much growth when, for me, I'm not able to actually acknowledge where I am at. And so in like learning about racism or some of the other poems that are very confessional, it's almost like a foundational point for which I am trying to grow beyond. And in naming the thing, you know, I during Black Lives Matter, I was like, I'm not racist. And then I saw the little micro things that I wasn't even aware of. And then I went back into my past and I was like, oh yeah, that's been there that whole time. And although I don't necessarily see myself as a racist person, I can see how there have been ways that I've participated in racism. And I feel like the only way to grow beyond that is to acknowledge where I'm at. Because to deny that for me is just more kind of spiritual bypass, I guess is the word I'd like to say about it.
In the poems where you're really excavating some of the old stuff from childhood, do you feel like that started as more like reflective writing, trauma processing, or was it intentional? Were you intending it to kind of be creative work for the public eye at the moment that you were writing it?
Yeah, I don't think I was ever going to share any of my poems ever. And then I had a very dear friend who was very encouraging of me to put a book together. And that was in 2020. And it took me, on his encouragement, I started putting my poems on social media. And I was getting a response from them. And I obviously put the ones that were a lot more palatable on social media at first. And then I got a little bit more risky and a little bit more daring and a little bit more bold in what I decided to share. And it was still received with empathy and understanding. And so I think that made me more, I don't know, encouraged to share more. And then as far as like writing them, so I guess writing them from that place was not like, oh, I'm going to write this and put this out in the world. It's much more like just exploring my own understanding of what had happened. And yeah, like for a while, I think it was a little bit of a spiritual bypass, the like actual diving into the actual trauma, and then my seeking the boundless state as a way of getting away from it. And so then merging the two of those together and bringing the healing to those places, I think through speaking on my experiences, then I was able to like not do the spiritual bypass thing and just be like, oh no, this is actually really nice to be able to express this and maybe have communion with other people who have suffered from similar traumas or can relate.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about the title of the book and how that came about and the tension between acknowledging the things that have happened that have shaped us with rough edges and the sense of wholeness that can come through that as well.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about titling the book A Woman in Pieces, which is also the title of one of the poems in there, which is more trauma informed, because I didn't want the poetry book to come across as, oh, this is a poetry book about a woman who's broken. You know, it's very much a poetry book about coming to understand all of the parts that make up the whole being versus it being like, you know, I'm falling apart. So the pieces is all of the pieces that make up the whole, versus it being brokenness. So yeah, there's that part of it. And then what was your second part of the question?
So you were going to read Primal Urges as
oh yeah, okay. So like I think also in doing that in writing about like all of these things that happened and then reflecting on these are the behaviors that came out of all of these things that happened, then I think that allowed for an understanding of what it means to be whole and how to move out of those choices or decisions or patterns. So one of the poems that came out of that was Primal Urges. Primal Urges. The wild woman that resides in my genes remembers anointing your cutaneous wounds for protection, meat, and a child. Do not call me from the wounded place. She will no longer rise to meet you and lick your scars to soothe my own. You may call me whole. We will meet again in the boundless place.
And that one's in the Crone section.
That's in Crone, yeah. So the Crone was more about like all of the learnings from everything that came before it. Like Huntress is very much like my seeking poems, my like trying to find answers inside of myself versus like the external waiting for the answers to come to me. And so then Crone is much more about, oh, and this is what I learned from all of that.
I don't want to overemphasize the mother archetype, but some of my favorite poems are, just carry that sense of maternal nurture, and also poems that speak to kind of the absence of mother and I guess this is the time to disclose that we're sisters, so I'll say our
My sister.
A little bit of a connection there. And so I was thinking if you read Whole Way Down and Unmothered kind of side by side to kind of to both sides of the womb and how those things come together in the book.
Do you think that our audience that doesn't know our story should have a little bit of context for like the unmothered part? Or is it necessary? It doesn't matter. Okay, my mother left when I was very young, so that's the unmothered part, but we're going to read the whole way down first.
You can read them in whichever order you feel.
Okay, I'll read the whole way down first. This is about my babies. The whole way down. I took my girls to a water park when they were little. My oldest wanted to go on a big girl slide called the Black Hole. It was a giant enclosed black tube that spiraled down forever. My youngest is terrified of the dark. She took one look at the water rushing into the gaping mouth of the black abyss and refused to get in the raft. I promised I would hold on to her the whole way down. The three of us got in and huddled to one side of the raft. We screamed and laughed and sloshed and spun and wobbled in the pitch black, down, down, down the spiral slide until we burst through the bright white light of the day and plunged with a splash into the lucid pool below. I have this image of Americans in the Midwest wearing hazmat suits, sweeping up ash and soot from nuclear fallout, while the Tangerine Man broadcasts from his underground bunker, bragging how unemployment and overpopulation are at an all-time low. I read it would take 33 minutes or less for an enemy ballistic missile to reach us. I hope it's my week with the kids if the bomb goes off. I hope we're just about to sit down for dinner when every smartphone in the world sounds an alarm in unison, warning us to take cover. No phones at the dinner table, I'll remind them. Turn them off. And we'll hold on to each other the whole way down. Okay, and then Unmothered, which is also in the mother section. Unmothered. I could have so much love for a woman who left me in the mountains by a barbed wire fence post to fend for herself. She knew the only way a mother knows how much her child is like herself, best left in the wild, raised by the wolves. She was only 20. At 19, I left mine in a biohazard waste container at the clinic, high on nitrous, unwilling to make her mistake. I won a beauty pageant 5 weeks pregnant with my dealer's baby. His mother paid for the entry fee, the airfare, and the procedure, my ticket out of her fate. Unmothered girls who turn into unmothered women become unmothered mothers, unmothered murderers, of unmothered children. This poem feels incomplete. Maybe that's how it should be. A child unmet, a life unlived. Think of it as compassion for the unborn.
I feel love in both of those poems, and I think they really they kind of really pull forward how much you can love both in the flesh and not in the flesh.
Yeah.
And like, it always just strikes me like mother's wombs are what pull things from the not material into the material. And, you know, we all have mothers to some extent or another, but we don't all become mothers. And so, you know, just the way that your poems speak to that really spoke to me as I'm grappling with, you know, my own life story and how much motherhood has played a big role in the shape that my life took in unexpected ways. And then, you know, and then what I love is that you get to integrate beyond just this kind of archetypal role for women in society that's becoming even more shoved down our throats, to, you know, to speak to the unique wisdom that living the lives of women can offer everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I think also in the mother section, there's a couple of poems in there about how much, you know, this is solar plexus chakra, also that chapter, and how much identity is around mother and nurturing, just as being in a feminine body. And there's a couple of poems in there, I think, especially when I'm seeking the boundlessness state, or maybe spiritual bypass for not wanting to have to feel the suffering or the trauma. But there's a few poems in there where it's like trying to really deconstruct identity as woman and mother. And like, that would be what would finally set me free from being in a body. Because I feel so identified with nurturing and my femininity as a nurturer and stuff. So there's an exploration of the esoteric and even that identification.
There, I'm just checking the time. It seems like we still have a pretty decent amount of time. There was a juxtaposition of two other poems that talked about kind of, it's still kind of in the parenting theme, but The Proposal and Something Borrowed. Would you be open to reading both of those? And then
Yeah. So, I mean, these are two different poems in two different sections, and they inform each other very, very much. And so I'm going to read the one that's in the Virgin section first, which was just, it's called Something Borrowed. She was gawky with self-conscious adolescence, not at all sweet, with her nipple buds poking through her t-shirt. Pretty, but much too old to be a flower girl. Her mother made friends with the owner of Petty's Meat Market, so Something Borrowed became scattered petals down the aisle at the butcher's wedding. And from that day on, chuck roast was only $3 a pound. I kind of want to speak to that because I don't think I read it really well, but I think it was just an awareness of when I was coming into my womanhood, the transactional quality of being a virgin and what that meant, especially to older men, and not necessarily feeling very protected in my innocence around that time. So then I go to Mother, where this happened like way before I even started writing, but it just stuck with me as being so such a significant moment. And then it wasn't until I was writing it that I realized what I was actually saying.
The proposal.
The proposal. And it was called The Parable of the Dogs. And then I changed it to The Proposal. Okay, this one's a little bit long, but I'll get through it. The Proposal. When I lived on the Venetian Islands, I had a Weimaraner puppy, a little blue girl named Sky. Across the street, behind an electric gate, lived an old silver male. When I took Sky for a walk, we'd stop by the gentle dog's house for a sniff to say hello. This excited the lonely canine. He would stand tall, his dock tail erect and wagging. On one occasion, he lifted a leg and released his scented mark to claim her as his own. I immediately yanked her away from the stream and we stopped paying our daily visits. Every day, I'd see him waiting for Skye at the gate, hoping to catch her eye. He'd pace back and forth in his yard, worried he had blown his only shot at love. Early one morning, Old Gray bolted across the street, carrying something in his mouth, and dropped it at Skye's feet. He took a step back and stood tall, pleased with himself, tail erect and wagging. He waited for her response. She didn't know what to do. She'd never seen, smelled, much less tasted an entire roasted chicken carcass in her life. She couldn't know the amount of planning, patience, and restraint it took Old Gray to steal the remains from the trash, hide it in a safe place until morning, time his owner's leaving for work, retrieve the precious jewel, slip through the closing gate, wait undetected for his beloved in the street, restrain the urge to indulge himself so he could make this offering of love and devotion. Skye looked up at me with the most innocent gaze. I have to admit, I was quite charmed by Old Gray's gesture. Even still, I scooped her up safely in my arms. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I said. "I'm not going to give you to him."
The nature of the transactions are so weird in a way. Like sometimes they're charming and gross at the same time.
Well, and also I think that some of those transactions, I think especially, coming from, maybe even when we had dowries and stuff like that, I think that there's a lot of intergenerational healing that needs to go along with that as a mother who's trying to marry her daughter off to a suitable partner and stuff. So, some of those moments, I think in my prepubescent stages were probably well-intended, but they felt gross. And just acknowledging that, having an awareness of that and the loss of innocence around it.
Do you think that men have their own version of being transactional objects? And what does that look like?
Ooh, I think they definitely do. I think it has to do around how useful they are and how they will be able to provide. And so it's about, I think, their functionality and their value as a doer and a fixer and a maker of things. Yeah, I think there's definitely an objectification in that.
We commoditize each other just in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this sections that to kind of take you, that where you're really finding your voice separate from the mother voice. We talked about Huntress when we were kind of prepping for this, and Me Versus Me was one of the poems we talked about you may be reading. So I thought if you read that, and maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. And I definitely want to leave time for questions in case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to do this as the last reading and then open it up?
That's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Huntress, which is my seeking poems and turning inwards and understanding a lot. Excuse me. Me versus me. The mean people, the enemies in my head take on many forms: family, friends, me, and I'm tired of fighting them. But when it's me versus me, I surrender. So I'd rather the enemy of the state wear their face, so there's enough space between us to fight back and not believe their lies. That's like about projected self-judgment. Like just realizing like, oh, like I'm actually a lot meaner to myself than anybody else is. And like when I think somebody is like, criticizing me, it's actually my own criticism of myself. And just coming into that awareness really helped bring a lot of self-love. And I know that's an overused phrase, but it's kind of like, Oh, well, let me like not be the meanest like talk to myself in a way that I would never talk to anybody else. Like, let me stop doing that.
Do you want to see if people in the audience have questions?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Or like does anybody have any requests? Celeste, I see your hand.
I just wanted to know, I've never asked, like, how long does it take you to write a poem? Does it like seriously vary, or like, is it common for you to kind of write it and then like check on it a day later, or is it kind of like a one and done thing?
Okay, so I hate to say it, but lately, because oh God, this is so embarrassing. The ADHD thing is really tough for me. So I usually wait to the last minute before, like 2 hours before I'm going to class to read a poem. And I've been, accumulating. I've been gathering the whole week. So I kind of have an idea of what I want to write about. And then when I sit down to write, like there's this one poem, Welcoming the Witch, and it's the longest poem I've ever written because I write very short poems. And a series of events had happened and I knew I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know how to talk about it. And class was like an hour, or the end of class was like an hour, and I was like, fuck, I got to write something. And so I just sat down, and luckily, like all of the pieces just came together, and I was able to kind of cut and paste and move and stuff like that. And then once it's done, it's kind of done. I'll read it and make sure it makes sense. And then in this collection, I worked with quite a few editors. Maureen actually helped me a lot. And there was another lovely woman, Isabel, gosh, I can't remember her name, that helped. And then also when you read in class, you get a lot of amazing feedback from the other Jack Grape students. And that also really helps you take out what's unnecessary in craft, or like hone down what it is that you're actually trying to say. So yeah, for me, a poem can take anywhere from an hour to I'm working backwards. I would say 30 minutes to 90 minutes. And then I'll kind of cut and paste and revise later, but once it's done, it's pretty much done.
Natasha typed a question in the chat. I'll just read it out loud real quick. She said, chiming in from a remote area of Alaska with bad Wi-Fi, camera is off. Love the book so much. Thank you for sharing with us all. The question is, your poetry will mean so much to people who have felt fractured or lost. What do you hope someone who's struggling takes away from it?
Oof. I think it's so easy to try to run away from the difficulty that life throws at us. And I think our wholeness depends on us experiencing everything, the pain and the anger and the rage, all of it, I think there are some emotions that are way more acceptable for us to talk about, for us to express, for us to write about. We want to be so such a good girl and so palatable and likable and stuff, that I think that we shy away from some of the more difficult things that life invariably throws at us. And so I think I hope that they find solace, that some of my words might speak to their experience, even if the experience is not the same, that they give them hope that there is, light on the other side of that darkness. And yeah, just a sense of community. I love you, Tosh.
Is there a section, if you were to pick one of the sections, do you think that there's one that does that work in particular? Or it's
I feel like you have to go on the journey, because I think until you understand, what the core of the existential crisis. I mean, I feel like I could title every poem in the book Existential Crisis number 1, Existential Crisis number 75, Existential Crisis number 752. I think that there's like a certain, first of all, there was like not a sense of self at the beginning anyway. And then there's a certain unraveling that happens and a putting back together and an unraveling and putting back together. I think that the crone section is where all of that kind of, there's a convergence that happens, but I don't think that you could just read the crone section and understand the foundational work that goes into like all of the answers to those questions. So
if somebody's picking this up for the first time, would you want them to like start at the beginning and read kind of sequentially? I'm a notorious just like flip it open and read at random kind of person, but maybe that's not the best strategy for this
so
one.
my strategy was always Bible dips. Like I would always just do Bible dips. So I feel like a poem finds you right at the right time. Like I think that the right poem finds you at the right time. But then I was encouraged to read poetry books, especially from beginning to end. And I was like, oh, this is actually important because there is a narrative that's woven through. So I think that however you come to the work is great. I think that if you Bible dip in a poem like resonates with you and it makes you feel like you want to go from the beginning to the end, great. Obviously, you don't have to do it all in one setting. But I do think that each section informs the next in a certain way.
Do other people want to unmute and ask a question? I'll read Natasha's other question in a second. I just want to make sure if there's other questions, people get to. Joshua, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, is there any section or like any part of the book that you're specifically proud of that you'd like to talk about?
Is it like okay to say I'm proud of the whole thing?
Absolutely.
For me, like, you know, I struggled in school. I had ADHD, probably was like severely depressed. So for me to put something together like this and like realize in what it did for me as a writer, as an artist, is like closed a thematic question that I had been working with for the last 10 years. And it's like, oh, I can kind of finally stop asking that question. I can move on to other things. And it is still something that very much informs my everyday. So it's not like it's completely gone. I think also, you know, not being able to have my voice and express myself and doing that and having it be received by people makes me feel really happy because I just, you know, want people to relate or feel the work. So that makes me feel really good. I have my favorites, you know, I have my favorites, but I think overall just the fact that I have a book. Like I can touch it. Like it's here. It's like it's my creative baby. She's out in the world. She's leaving the nest too. You know, it's like it makes me really happy. I didn't realize how proud of myself I was until I had this dream where I told a mentor in the dream that I had a book, and she goes, "You must be proud of yourself." And I cried in the dream. I was like, "I am. I'm really proud of myself." I was like, "Oh, I guess this is a really big deal to me." I didn't even realize it until I had that dream. I was like, oh, fuck, I am proud of myself. It's so weird. Like, wow, I'm congratulating myself. Good job. Okay.
Natasha asked if you could whisper one thing to the version of yourself who was living through the hardest parts of the story. What would it be?
Okay. I had this meditation when I came back from India. And it was that the wiser part of myself, my older self, told my present self to talk to my younger self and tell her that she was going to be okay. And I really feel like I've had this really strong inner voice my whole life. And I feel like it was that moment that helped me get through those times. Like, you know how they say the past, present, and future is happening all at once. I really believe that, you know, trusting the quiet voice, like trust the quiet voice. Like, don't be afraid to turn inwards and listen to the quiet voice until it gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. And then you can speak your truth. I think that that would be the thing that I would tell her. Yeah.
What are you working on next?
Okay, so I am working on a series of shorts called the Ojai Chronicles that was about an experience I had with my children in Ojai the summer before Celeste left for college. I was having a dark night of the soul, trying to figure out how to navigate this next chapter, and so many weird things happen, and so I'm trying to weave it into this very weird series of shorts that I hope to direct. And then I have my comedy screenplay Tripping with Mom that I'm still shopping around. It's with a financier in at Caviar Films right now. I hope she's loving it. I might have a film coming up I'm not supposed to talk about, but we'll see. I might have a really nice part in a small film. And then I'm always writing poetry. Like I feel like poetry is the host of my creativity. You know, I love writing. I love like weaving that narrative and really listening and seeing the pictures and trying to like bring things down into like something that is relatable. That's fun for me.
It's very different than film writing, though.
Yeah, film writing is, you know, very structured, which is like, kill me now. But luckily, I'm a very visual storyteller, so I write like in the shots that I want to see. So then it makes it a lot easier because then it's just like my shot list and then what the characters need to say.
Yeah.
And then I have to plug it into the format of the screenplay.
I know we're about to run out of time. Any last question? Everybody's clamoring for more, for sure.
I don't know how to read
more.
I want to read these messages. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. The meeting schedule is about to end. Actually. Okay. Thank you so much, Kathy. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. I hope I can read these later because I didn't get to read these while we were doing it. So you guys, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. It means like so much to me that you guys showed up. Like, I can't even tell you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's awesome to hear these with your voice, because like there's the voice in my head when I read it in the book, but you're a storyteller when you read them out loud, and it makes it even more deep.
Thank God, because I have a tendency to read way too fast. Lisa can attest to that. Jack is always like, slow down. And I'm like, ah. So yeah, I'm glad that it came out like without it sounding too
Awesome.
Well, we need to give Michelle a huge round of applause because those were the best questions that helped us get to know Nicole better as a person and as a writer and as a creative person and as a human. And so, Michelle, thank you so, so much for
My pleasure. Thank you.
this. But also huge round of applause for Nicole because you have a book and it's your book and it's your poetry.
And it's beautiful.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm like, when you said that you like the work and wanted to publish it, I was in tears. I was like, thank God. I'm so happy that I found you, you found me. And also, is Andrew still here? That Andrew connected us. Thank you, Andrew, if you're still here.
Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so grateful. Forever, forever, forever grateful. Thank you.
Diane Knox raised her hand. Let's see.
Oh,
are you there? Do you have one more question?
Oh,
I just saw that pop up.
Okay, maybe it was a mistake.
Diane, do you want to unmute? Was that a boo-boo, or did you want to?
no, I can't unmute you. There you go.
I love this. This was great. Thank you
Yay.
so much.
Thank you so
Oh.
much for coming.
I'm so glad Diane's here. She's one of my favorites.
Mm.
So thank you all so much for coming and supporting Nicole, for supporting poetry. We need more poetry. We need more words in the world. And this is how it's done is we support the poets by buying their book and we give the book to other people. We have this physical piece in our world. And so you can buy it anywhere. You can buy it on our website. It's international. Find more of her work. support her filmmaking. This book is representing exactly the kind of transformative poetry that Bainbridge Island Press is proud to bring into the world. And Nicole has created a modern spiritual path for women that will resonate for generations. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for Nicole. And thank you, everyone, for helping us to create something really, truly extraordinary. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful, safe night, and keep writing.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Ben.
Absolutely.
And thank you for everybody. If I didn't say hi to you individually, I see you all and I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you.